Welcome, everybody, and this is another episode of the Mind Sculptors gameplay series. Up today, we've got a really interesting matchup between Fenix on Najeela, Callahan on Timna Jessica, Pongo on Kenrith, and Snax on Timna and Thrasios. Hi, everybody. I am your host, Callahan, and joining me again this week is Sickrobot. Sick, how's it going today?
Hey, I am doing pretty well. Thanks for asking. How you doing, Callahan?
Doing pretty good, honestly. People seem to really like our last video, so we had you back, and we're doing it again. So we've got a couple different decks to line up, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. But first, we're going to take a quick second here to remind you to head over down into the description and check out our Patreon. There should be a link in the description for that. If you sign up, you get access to our Discord server, and it also helps us continue to make these videos. So we would greatly appreciate that. So anyway, like I said, we've got 4 really interesting decks here lined up. So to start us off, we're going to look at Fenix's list, and he is playing what he calls a less experimental queen. We saw Pongo's experimental queen last week. So what is this list really trying to do there, Sick?
So this is, as the name might suggest, it's the less experimental version of Najeela, where you really aren't trying to do any of the turbo-y stuff that we might have seen in the last episode, but you are doing a lot of the Najeela stuff. You're doing stuff like trying to get Derevian to play to kill people with Najeela, or you're trying to do stuff like get a Nature's Will to play to kill people with Najeela, or potentially even a Druid's Repository to play to kill people with Najeela.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have the backup plan as well of Oracle Consult, because Consult and Tainted Pact layer very well with your 1-card win conditions in the rest of the deck, so you can either use them to tutor for your win cons, use them to tutor for interaction, or just win with Oracle. And the rest of the deck is pretty much just a good old pile of good cards from 5 color, which is sort of what you expect.
Yeah. This deck list update is brought to you by Moxfield. The good guys over at Moxfield made this new screen, so you can go check that out if you want to see like a visual view, a like full page visual view of your deck list. Moving on to the next deck at the table is Callahan. He's going to be going on Jessica Farm. So what is this Jessica Timna list really trying to do?
So it takes after the farm decks of the farm deck of your Mad Farm. Typically, that deck was a Timna Bruce deck, using Bruce as a life gain engine along with Timna to, draw cards, gain some life, cast a fat ad nauseam later on in the game. This is following in the same footsteps, except what Jessica adds to the deck is an infinite mana outlet. Ooh. Ooh. Ah, from the crowd. Which actually is better than you might think. The historic issue with Mardu and CDH, aside from not having great commanders and having 2 support colors, ignoring those, the large problem with Mardu has historically been that it has historically weak win conditions. A lot of the time you were looking at stuff like ad nauseam Angel's Grace Sickening Dreams, not great. Doing like lean in Relic Warder loops, not great. Trying to do like Bomberman stuff with Auric Salvagers and LED, but you need an outlet as well, so it's a 3-card combo. Just historically not great. What this deck lets you do is actually do like Bomberman stuff with LED and Auric Salvagers and have an outlet in the command zone, so you don't actually have to draw your entire deck before you get to win.
Right.
You can also do stuff like make infinite mana in some ways with Breach. Obviously, Breach also helps out because you now have Breach with Wheel of Fortune and LED, also when you do the game. Really, you just get a lot better density of effects here.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what this does because from my experience watching this, It can be very explosive. Maybe not as explosive as that Silas Roger game we saw last week.
Maybe not.
But it certainly can go off pretty quickly. Speaking of Silas Roger, he was on it last week. He's playing a little bit of a different deck this week. Pongo is playing his flavor of this Kenrith Snax, or probably better known as Fairer Magic this week. And so, from what you know, Sick, what are the key differences between what Pongo's Kenrith Stacks list is doing from Cobble's Stacks list?
So, for one, the Pongo King K Rule of Law list, great name by the way, can't slight that name, is in fact not on Dovescape. Huge difference. Cobblepot's Fairer Magic is in fact on Dovescape. Also, the King K Rule of Law is on Knowledge Pool, I believe, as another combo piece along with Possibility Storm with the Rule of Laws. And I believe Pongo's list is a bit more stapley, so running a bit more of a conventional suite of good cards, hate bears, some value pieces, rather than going a bit further off the deep end, like Cobble's.
Cobble
not that the deep end is necessarily a bad thing, but this is closer to what you might expect out of a 5-color pile.
I mean, he was part of the Lab Maniacs. They don't call them Lab Maniacs for nothing, right? One of the key differences I've seen just when preparing some of this stuff is Pongo's list has much more stack-based interaction than what Cobble's list would have. So you're going to see a lot more spells out of this. Not that we got to see Fair Magic last week. We're hopefully going to get to see that in action at some point. But this is going to have a little bit more stack-based interaction. So that's something to keep in mind. One thing that I think is interesting is every time I look at this list is the Tymna in the 99. And what is the rationale, do you think, for that?
Well, so that one is just a Pongo classic. I mean, that's an obvious carryover from Najeela, where obviously Tymna in Najeela is pretty great. You generate a lot of bodies. They tend to get through to people a fair amount. It's very reasonable that you draw 2+ cards on a Tymna in Najeela. I think it's sort of been carried over here just because of the pure number of creatures in this list. I mean, we have 28 creatures, not counting Kenrith. So over a quarter of the deck here is creatures. And a lot of them have fairly solid bodies, so I don't think it's unreasonable to expect to be able to connect with some of them.
Right. I'm going to root for this deck just a little bit because it is playing my homegirl Lavinia in this. Y'all know it. I'm a Lavinia shill, so I'm always excited whenever I can see that card get played in any fashion. And then finally at the table, we have our friend Snax, another member here of the Lincoln community. He is going to be playing Razakats. And so this is a pretty traditional Razakats list, but for those of you who might not know, or for the listeners who might not know, really, what is the Razakats deck trying to do?
Well, so for the new player out there, Razakats is historically a Thrasios Tymna deck. Doesn't necessarily need to be, but that's basically where it fits best most often. That really is the closest you get to like a vintage cube style reanimator deck is like the best I could put it. It's really like the closest you get to value reanimation in CEDH. Obviously you do have win lines. Razaketh is a very powerful card to reanimate, and along with a couple of dorks, which this deck has no shortage of. You can typically win the game through a bit of mana profiting, teeter chaining, all that good stuff. I won't go into depth in the lines right now. But you're also looking at having some alternate reanimation targets, like in this list specifically, Consecrated Sphinx, Jin Gataxias. Just stuff that you can get into play and start getting ahead with very early in the game, even potentially as early as turn 1 with a Lotus Petal into Reanimate. And then it's It's an interesting one. It's also a classic.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of one of those classic CDH decks. I feel like it's been around about as long as I have been playing the format, which that might make me seem like a rookie or whatever. But I mean, as long as I have been playing CEDH, Razakats to some degree has been there. So it's kind of, we saw that a little bit last week with CST. We're getting a little bit more of that taste here today with Thrasios Tymna. Those were our deck lists brought to you by Moxfield. Now we're ready for the starting hands. So first up, going last in the turn order, is Snax. He kept a 6 card hand. He's got Verdant Catacombs, Brainstorm, Entomb, Enlightened Tutor, a Forest, and Rhystic Study. So what do you make of this opening hand there?
So this is an interesting one. There's definitely an opportunity to do some pretty abusive things early in the game. We're looking at potentially a turn 3 reanimated on a Jin-Gitaxias or such by Enlightening Tutoring for a Necromancy or an Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, etc., etc. It's also a bit awkward, though, just because you can't really cast your Brainstorm here before you tutor, or before you fetch, rather. It's might be a bit awkward to land that Rhystic Study, especially with no Dork, so it's going to be hard to get it down on turn 2 when you would really want it. You may have to wait until turn 3. There's also the very real chance that you might get Brainstorm locked here. Really, the mana is just going to be the limiting factor here. That Forest is going to be a thorn in the side of this hand, and you're really, really hoping to hit like another fetch off the top of this Brainstorm or something to that effect in order to actually be able to cast your spells.
All right. Up next, going third in the turn order, is Pongo. He kept 7. He had a Bayou, a Gemstone Caverns, a Polluted Delta, a Grand Abolisher, Dark Confidant, Findhorn Elves, and Rule of Law. So what do you make of this 7 there?
Well, this is just about everything that you want to be doing in this deck. Landing an early Rule of Law with extra acceleration and potential early value engine is just about all you can ask for. Sets Pongo up really well for going into the later game and hopefully finding a lock piece. If you can rip a Knowledge Pool off the top after a few more land drops, then that's pretty much game over here. Same thing with Possibility Storm, and just in general, the deck's designed to run under Rule of Law fairly easily, so even an early Kenrith here might just close the door on the game.
Interesting. Very excited to see where this heads. And going first in the turn order is Callahan. He kept a 6 lander. He kept Enlightened Tutor, Lion's Eye Diamond, Command Tower, Marsh Flats, Polluted Delta, and City of Brass. So this is a very mana-heavy opening hand.
Yeah, it certainly is. Really what we're looking for here is a tutor off the top, so we can look for something like, I'd say like a Wheel of Fortune that you can abuse with a Breach, something to that effect. Obviously the Enlightened Tutor is nice here, but you're really leaning on your draws to actually get you to actual gas in order to play the game, because as it stands, you're not really doing much.
Interesting. Yeah, and I was incorrect. He's actually going second in turn order. Going first is Fenix, and he kept a Deathrite Shaman, a Nature's Will, Mystic Remora, Demonic Consultation, Llanowar Elves, Wooded Foothills, and an Overgrown Tomb. So this is a pretty decent start here out of a Najeela.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, about as much as you can ask for out of the Najeela deck. Early acceleration, pretty much a Najeela at your leisure. Turn 2 Najeela at earliest, if he doesn't rip something like a Mana Crypt off the top, which Najeela players are prone to do. Otherwise,
right.
Turn 1 Remora ruins games, as always, especially with some dorks to back it up and just keep it going forever. There are just a ton of options here. You already have the win con in your hand, Consult for the Fish Straw off the top, for the Oracle, a lot of options here.
Yeah. We are going to get started here. Like I said, going first here in the turn order is Fenix, going on this Najeela list. So we'll head on over there. So pre-game effects, Pongo has a gemstone cavern, and he is exiling a bayou. So he's going down to 5 initially.
So that's pretty interesting to me, actually. I'm surprised that he didn't pitch the Grand Abolisher there. Honestly, I wasn't sure if he wanted to commit to keeping the double white cost in his hand, but it makes sense to me if he is anticipating a lot of interaction that he might want to just get that down and have access to the ability to shut off all that interaction.
Right. On Fenix's opening turn, he did shock in an Overgrown Tomb, slammed a Llanowar Elves, and passed. Callahan did play a command tower in an LED, and Pongo is encouraging him right now to crack the LED for a turn 1 Jessica, but I believe he's just going to pass the turn.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would be the correct play.
Pongo's going to crack the Misty Rainforest, and it sounds like he's getting a Savannah, and he's playing Dark Confidant.
Yes, this is sort of what I was talking about with the early value engine. Just being able to get that online, get ahead in cards, and slam a Rule of Law and some acceleration is just going to be lights out, I think, for some of the decks of this table, namely Farm.
So, I think they're, yeah. So now Snax has it. He's playing Verdant Catacombs. He's cracking it for Underground Sea, so he's leaving up the blue. So presumably he didn't draw land, and he is going for an end step Brainstorm, I would assume.
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't know why he fetched first. Might be playing around an opposition agent, but honestly, I would probably have just held the fetch because you're also have an Enlightened Tutor in your hand, and you might want to hold that in case there's a wheel coming, so cast the Enlightened Tutor instead of the Brainstorm here.
And so Fenix cracked the Wooded Foothills, got a Volcanic Island, and so I think we're going to be getting a Najeela here, and that's what it sounds like.
Remora is definitely an option here, but I think the turn 2 Najeela is just too valuable to start getting some warriors into play. And as we all know, late game fish never goes away and is, in fact, the most annoying thing on the face of the planet. So it's not unreasonable to wait for that. So we're seeing
Najeela. So Callahan responded with an Enlightened Tutor. What do you think he's trying to get off of this?
Honestly, not super sure. Potentially this could be like something like a Necropotence, just to try to get gas going. Could also be prematurely tutoring an Underworld Breach, potentially something like a Smothering Tide. Not actually sure if that's in the list, but those will all be options to my eye.
I believe the 3 enchantments the list runs is Underworld Breach, Necropotence, and Smothering Tithe.
Gotcha.
And then just a litany of artifacts.
Yep.
So, I mean, and this could be going after an artifact. I'm not sure. Mana Crypt.
Definitely. Okay. Could be getting Mana Crypt here. So this is looking like a turn 2 Tymna. Honestly, I think I might have been more of a fan of going for a Necropotence here, especially with the incredibly low amount of gas that the hand had in the first place. Maybe if there was another creature there, I would have been more a fan of this play if there was an option for, say, a turn 1 Blood Pet, turn 1 Children of Corliss, or Hope of Kiripu, or something to that effect. This is going to be a fairly weak Tymna, but I do understand the thought process behind it. Mana Crypt by no stretch is a bad card. So
so he draws the Mana Crypt for turn, rearranging the cards a little bit. One line of play, I'm curious to see what happens here. He's just kind of taking his time putting this up, kind of surveying. Plays Polluted Delta and is cracking it. What do you think, based off of what we know about his hand, that he's going for on this Polluted Delta fetch?
I'd say probably a Badlands. Deck's pretty light on white. You're a lot more happy with black and red, especially with something like Necropotence in the deck.
Right.
And you already have the white off of the command tower to cast the Tymna, so...
Interesting. We'll see what he gets here.
Yeah.
Seems like he's digging for it. It's almost like they're 100 cards decks or something.
All something like that. I don't know.
And he does get a Badlands.
Yeah, there we go. I can't imagine why anybody would ever play double sleeved in EDH, honestly.
You know, I do play double sleeved, but I have the ones that I use when I do play is the like sealed inners. So
Sure.
they're they don't really add a whole lot, but they're nice.
Yeah.
So shuffling up here.
Yep. I'd imagine we're seeing Crypt into Timna unless there was a draw last turn.
Well, he drew into the mana crypt, so his hand really hasn't changed.
Yeah. Well, so the draw for the first turn
Well,
is
right.
sort of what I'm thinking here. It could have been not a turn one play that he's considering here. Like he might have drawn a Smothering Tithe and is considering playing that, but I'm assuming this is Timna. That being said, it could also be going for a Jeska to kill the Najila, but I feel like you want to try to get ahead on cards. It's really not doing you any favors to try to shut down Najila. Oh,
He is cracking the LED.
wow.
So he picked up, I think it was an Exotic Orchard, would have been the draw? Because he didn't have that in his opening hand, correct? Mm-hmm. Playing Jessica
Yeah, so I guess
first?
we're seeing casting both. It's definitely a line.
I think you want
if
to play
you're
the
going to be
Timna
killing-
first.
Potentially, yeah.
Oh, he's not resolving the Jessica, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Just talking it over.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
Yeah.
like.
You'd
Um,
think
yeah.
that there'd be a Timna first for the extra loyalty. Yeah, okay.
And I
There
would
we go.
assume he would want to tick down and pick off that Najila. So he's kind of talking it over right now. So he's going to play... Yep, there it is, Timna.
All right, so we're probably gonna see Jessica downtick and basically nab the entire board here. So you get to take the Dork, Najila, and Bob with this.
Yeah, that... And interesting, do you think that's like a good line here?
I think it's fine. I understand why you want to keep the Najila out of play here, especially with being this far behind. And I guess there's not much going on in the hand anyway, so it's fairly reasonable to say, okay, this hand isn't worth much. I'm just going to pitch it all to effectively wipe the board and make sure that my Timna is getting through.
Right. Well, so he passes the turn here over to Pongo. He draws for turn. He's kind of considering what to do here. 'Cause he still has the Grand Abolisher. The Dark Confidant going away might actually impact Pongo's future a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely could. You now no longer... Yeah, so here's the Grand Abolisher. I'm not a super... This is sort of why I'm not a large fan of pitching the land instead of the Grand Abolisher. Because we just saw him miss a land drop there as well.
Right.
And I don't think this Grand Abolisher is going to be doing much, especially playing it out early. It's sort of just a removal magnet.
Right. Snax cast Brainstorm in response. But so, I mean, presumably Pongo did not get a land, I would assume, if he just threw out the Grand Abolisher.
Definitely might have, but I don't think so. And this is, why I wasn't a huge fan. This could have been a rule of law instead if you had pitched the Grand Abolisher instead of the land here.
They're all kind of joking right now about how Callahan pitched the board, or pitched his hand, kept a hand and basically pitched it to basically cast a board wipe. So it looks like Snax is still resolving his Brainstorm. Just another reminder while he is resolving this, if you have not yet subscribed to our Patreon, you should go check it out. There's a link in the description. You can go down there and subscribe. That'll get you access to our Discord server and will also help us kind of keep the show going. Pongo passed the turn here. So he did miss a land drop, so it's right back to Snax. And so what do you think this is doing for Pongo's game plan right now?
I mean, it's basically just hoping to rip a land. Definitely, the delaying the rule of law by a turn is pretty terrible here, and it's only going to get worse if you can't hit those land drops. And even then, you're still just pretty far behind now.
Right.
Also of note, it looks like there wasn't a land drawn off that brainstorm because there was a forest played, which might make this fairly awkward. Ooh,
the fish gets misstepped. So that does not resolve. And he's just going to pass that over to Fenix. So misstepping the fish is probably the correct play there, I would assume. You don't want the...
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. I can't imagine giving the Razakats player cards is a great deal.
Yeah, especially after you know that they fetched into Brainstorm and then didn't play another fetch. So keeping them locked with what they have on top instead of letting the fish draw some cards, especially if you're going to go carpet into your own fish. It's definitely worth it to burn that here.
So he is casting the fish off the carpet of flowers, which is exactly what you said. We knew he had that Mystic Remora. So that looks like it's resolving. So that's definitely puts Fenix back in a good position.
Yeah. And I mean, Farm's going to have a tough time getting out of this. The fish is already not great. There's a very real chance that you start drawing into Counter Magic very quickly on the Jill's side. It's a fairly interactive deck. And then, even then, if Pongo just sticks his Rule of Law, you're going to have to work through a lot to get the job done here.
Right. So Callahan did swing Tymna at Fenix, gained 2 life and lost 1 to pay for the Tymna there. So now, I mean, he's getting some card advantage there.
Yep. Definitely recouping that loss from the LED a bit. I'm just concerned about the future of the game plan here. Maybe if you rip a tutor right this turn or something to that effect.
So he's tapping 3,
cast.
casting Demonic
there we
Tutor.
go.
And he'll have
one could ask for.
1 colorless floating off the top.
Yeah, it looks that way. All right. So
what are you tutoring here?
I mean, if you want to go for it, there's definitely, you're pretty much set up for a Breach turn. If you cast Breach off the floating, you can cast the LED. You have enough lands, or you have enough lands left in the bin, I think, so that you can recast the D tutor and find another combo piece. That being said, you might be waiting a turn here as well, which may not turn out well for the rule.
Oh, there's the Underworld Breach.
So here's the Breach.
Nobody has a response. Mystic Remora is getting a draw, so he is feeding the Najeela player here. Do you think that's worth it?
Yeah, I mean, you basically know that Pongo is playing Rule of Law deck, so even if you don't know that he actually has one in his hand, there's a very realistic assumption that he has one if he can hit a land drop. And I mean, the fish probably isn't going away at this point with the carpet in play, and presumably more dorks. So I can't imagine that there's a better time to go for this.
Now, the one issue we're going to see here is he has 1 card in hand, 3 cards left in the graveyard. So he gets a DT here, and he'll net 1 mana. What do you think he grabs off of this?
Well, so there's an Entomb here, which isn't the worst. I'm trying to work this out. I'm not sure if there is a line here. This might just be getting a DT of 1 black left. You can't recast the LED. This might just be setting up for an Adnaz next turn.
Possibly. So he uses the 2. Looks like he exiles everything not named LED. And so LED is now the only card left in the graveyard. So if you're in this spot, what do you think you're going to get off this DT if it resolves?
Yeah, honestly, it might just be an ad nauseum. Potentially, you could be going for something like a Savine's Reclamation. Oh,
Noxious Revival on the LED.
that is rough. So there's definitely not a Savine's anymore because that's not gonna do the. It's not gonna do the trick. You're looking at like one black mana. There's not a lot here. Yeah, I think you just have to set up for next turn and just hope that you don't get locked.
Yeah. It is definitely, and this isn't a great place to be for Callahan, and he kind of down to 6 with a mana heavy hand. He didn't really have a great start, so to really even be in a position like this, I feel like is fairly good.
Yeah, definitely. That being said, actually, this could be a wheel or Jessica's wheel instead, depending. I think what you're really looking at here is a Wheel of Fortune or an Adnaz, though. I don't think Jessica's wheel is high impact enough, and nothing else is really going to dig you out of this hole.
Right. So we'll see what he's getting. Well, they're talking about possible lines. One thing she was saying is that if he doesn't Noxious, he would get Rain of Filth. But I don't know what he gets with the Rain of Filth anyway, because he only sacks 2 lands to that. And so you'd have to...
Yeah, you profit 1, and then you get to recast, and then you have 2 mana left over. No, not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just going card neutral there. It's not enough. Potentially, if this was in blue and you had something like a Brainstorm, there might be a line there. But even with the Noxious Revival, I don't think you're winning here anyway.
That seems like a good assessment of the situation.
You knew that Noxious Revival is in fact a good card against Breach.
Yeah, he grabbed a Soul Ring.
All right. Wouldn't be my first choice. I think you really need to set yourself up for gas next turn rather than more mana. You already are a land off of pretty much most things in your deck except for Appear. So I think it's like, in my opinion, it's a lot better just to guarantee the gas. If you're not doing like a Wheel or a Dadnaz, potentially an Opposition Agent, to lock the board down, maybe steal somebody else's tutor and try to get there. But I don't think that Soul Ring is going to dig you out of this hole.
Well, it seems he went for the I am mana short, so I am going to try and get a Soul Ring. Seems to be the logic there. But it seems Adnaz might have been a better, because that is his turn, because he'll have to pass.
Mm-hmm. And now you've lost Breach, and you're basically locked into trying to find a Bomberman win at this point.
Yeah. Which I don't know with the decks at the table, with the cards he has in hand, if that is going to be great.
Yeah.
If he loses the Tymna, he's pretty much out of this.
Just about.
So this goes over to Pongo's turn. He's going to draw for turn. And he gets his land drop.
Finds the land. So I can't imagine that this isn't going to be a rule of law, although I think potentially there's an argument for not casting it here and instead going for something else, and depending, since the farm deck is empty-handed and has mostly burnt their wood attempt.
Right.
It could be correct just to try to establish more mana or value rather than going right for the lock piece here.
Interesting. Oh, he plays a dockside.
Well, that's certainly better than anything that I was talking about. So
he gets
definitely start there.
4 treasures off of that.
Pongo has this uncanny ability to just rip the most mana possible off of any given top deck.
So it sounds like he's fetching for an island, because it sounds like there's only one island out there, getting a tropical island, or excuse me, volcanic island. And so what do you think? So he drew the dockside extortionist, so he might still just use that mana to go into a rule of law, possibly.
Potentially. It's actually interesting, though, because he didn't play a land last turn, which indicates to me that he already had the dockside, and he actually wanted to wait a turn cycle, which is reasonable to me. I mean, if we look at last turn cycle, there was neither a carpet nor a fish out.
Right.
And we were basically looking at only Mana Crypt. It's definitely worth it to not play out, but it's very nice that he actually had it for the turn when he needed the mana, which is right now.
One thing that's also possible, he could just use the mana to slam a big old Kenrith.
Certainly could. I'm not sure how great Kenrith is here, but it definitely is an option.
So he is casting the Rule of Law.
Yep.
And
this is sort of expected. It's basically what the deck wants to do. Operates very well under Rule of Law. Has lock pieces associated with it, especially with there not being bodies on the board to contest that. Typically, this deck wins through those locks by using Kenrith and mana sinking Kenrith, because Kenrith makes all of your boys big boys, and then nobody can contest you anymore.
Ooh, so Snax gets to play the heuristic study, but it looks like he still is stuck on 2 lands.
Yeah, this is definitely what I was worried about with this hand, is that the Brainstorm has a very real potential to just get you locked under it. And you just don't really have the mana to do much anymore.
Right. So Fenix is going to pay for that fish, which, what do you think about that? I mean, you probably want to keep it considering the decks that are at the table.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, though. I think he still has a Deathrite Shaman, right?
I
might have another.
He should have a Deathrite Shaman, and he looks like he drew an Exotic Orchard.
There we go.
So there you go.
Okay, so that's expected. So I think we probably see a Deathrite Shaman here. You really want the Najeela back in play as soon as possible, because again, Najeela also a very good deck at playing through Rule of Law.
Right.
You generate a large board presence very quickly, and people tend to die before they can do much about it. So I think you're just looking to invest in some extra mana here in order to slam Commander and try to beat face.
I mean, Najeela makes an absurd amount of mana, or not mana, amount of bodies after 2 turn cycles, right?
Yes. After 2 turn cycles of attacking, you can get up to what, 8? What? No. Well, you get up to 4, but after that you get to 8. And it's a lot.
And there comes a point with that deck where you just kind of like, you don't even need the combo. You just have like that amount of bodies that you can slam into people.
I've definitely had games against Najeela where the winning line was attack with Najeela, activate, attack again, everybody's dead.
So Fenix had to discard a Forbidden Orchard there, so he definitely has some spicy stuff in his hand if he's discarding land.
Did play the Soaring as well. Definitely a better ramp piece than the Deathrite Shaman.
Certainly.
We're going back to farm.
Yeah, so farm has the turn going to attack for turn, and he is still going after Fenix, pressuring that life total. And is this the line of play you would go with?
Yeah. The other argument is to attack the Razakat's player just to get the life total down, because Razakat is a fairly life-intensive win line, and it does have some requirements there, but with the mana screw on that side of the board, I don't think there's much to be worried about, and you're more worried about getting Najeela low enough that they can be dealt with, and they can't afford to swing all out.
So Jessica gets recast, and that just sends a lot of triggers onto the stack there. We've got a Mystic Remore and a Heuristic Study trigger. He does pay for the Heuristic Study.
Yeah. Keeping this Razaketh player down is actually pretty incentivized, especially considering if they can get enough mana, it's actually fairly reasonable they just start casting things like Consecrated Sphinx or Jin-Gitaxias.
Right.
So keeping them off that mana for as long as possible in a slow game is definitely worth it. This Jessica's also pretty nice because you can start clearing out board again, getting rid of that Grand Abolisher is certainly nice for keeping some semblance of interaction up for Pongo's turns.
Yeah, well, and he just wiped the board. Now, putting the Dockside in the bin with the Kenrith, what do you think about that?
I think it's probably a bit loose. Kenrith definitely abuses Docksides in the bin more than a lot of other commanders. Maybe not as much as like Alesha, but
Right.
it's up there. So as soon as you see 5 mana again from Pongo, that could be an issue. I think you might actually just put the rest of the damage into Fenix's face there. That being said, it's fairly reasonable to like attack something with the Dockside and get somebody to block it. So I'm not sure how much of a difference it would have made, but I think it's definitely the tighter line just to not give it the death for free.
Well, he did cast the Kenrith, so he is a mana crypt away from replaying a Dockside at instant speed. Get an Arbor Elf here from Snax.
And important to note that even a Kenrith activation, which is 5 mana to get back to Dockside, is actually still a ritual here, considering the fish is still around.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going away. So right now, if a Dockside came back, it would make 6 treasure. So, I mean, it's mana positive,
small
right?
Amount. Yep. And I mean, it's only likely to get more as Callahan draws more cards.
Right, and well,
Because that deck has a lot of artifacts.
I think it's like 20 artifacts, something like that.
Yeah. Looking at, 19? Yeah, it's still a bunch.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the downside of those Mardu farm lists, right? Is you're stuck in, you don't get to play any of the dorks or things like that,
Yep.
you know, something like Sultai or Jund would do. There comes the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah. Interesting for Fenix that it looks like he didn't find a land this turn. So maybe discarding that Forbidden Orchard was a bit loose, because that means that he's not making the Najeela this turn.
That is true. Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't think he's getting the Najeela this turn anyway from paying for the fish. So he would still only have 4 mana. Is that correct?
He has a carpet. Would still be giving him 1. So if he had kept the land, he actually might have been able to cast Najeela. And he had the land anyway. Interesting. This is actually very interesting to me. The fact that he had the land drop and chose not to cast Najeela this turn, I think represents either interaction or definitely something that needs to happen at instant speed. Potentially an opposition agent. I'll have to look out for that.
Well, Callahan is dying to his mana crypt at the moment.
As one tends to do.
It is interesting. I've played with Fenix a lot historically, and in our league here in Lincoln, 2 times in the playoffs, he has died to his crypt for like just taking damage 15 turns in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not free. It's less common here than it is in 60 card formats in 1v1, but definitely, yeah, not something that hasn't happened before. I've died to my own crypt my fair share of times, so.
It's one of those real big feels bad moments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Sarah Ascendant from Callahan here.
And that is on. That is an activated Sarah Ascendant, which, I mean, slow games, yeah, that'll do work.
Yeah.
Especially with the Timno in play.
So I don't know, people who are listening and watching, if you might not know this, but with Sarah Ascendant and Jessica, you're dealing, if you 0 on the Sarah Ascendant, you're dealing 18 damage. That's lifelink.
18 life.
Yeah.
I believe.
Correct. It is a very good card.
Yeah, it certainly does a bit of work in this deck.
It's kind of fun. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we're basically just in 2-shot range of most people at this table at this point, or very close to it. So I can't imagine there won't be some amount of digging to try to deal with this, but I don't know how much digging can be done. There's a rule of law in play still.
Right. So he's sacking the Jessica, dealing 1 to Fenix's face, 1 to Snax's face, and then he also removed the Arbor Elf, and he is swinging the Timna at Snax. It definitely seemed like it was a move to clear the board. What do you think of that line of play?
I think I would have preferred keeping it around, zeroing on the Timna, getting back some extra life, and then doing the down tick next turn. You're definitely looking to recast it next turn anyway, and having the extra life from Timna here, I think is something that I would have appreciated more than getting rid of the Dork.
Interesting. Well, as we saw in the game with the Druid, Callahan doesn't always have the tightest lines.
Yeah. It happens.
So he shocks himself for the Overgrown Tomb
To play a
and
Dork.
plays
That is-
Finhorn Elves.
Yeah.
It sounds like, listening to it there, he's saying that if he shocks it, he can just pay 3 to gain 3 life. And so he ends up gaining
Yeah.
1 life.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely a true statement. I can't imagine that it would be like, I can't imagine the 1 life would be better than just putting counters on Kenrith / putting it on the Finhorn Elves, but you know what? Pongo does what he wants, and nobody can take that away from him.
Oh, man. Llanowar Elves drops in for Snax.
Yeah. On actually a more serious note for Pongo, I imagining this is representing, again, something like an opposition agent or a hull breach or something to that effect.
So Snax does snap in, or shock in, a Watery Grave. And
So he's getting there.
And Fenix has something on end step. Oh, he's casting Limdul's Vault. Here we go,
All right.
boys. So what are you looking for?
I'm not even sure, quite honestly. If he has removal or Thassa's Oracle, he might be looking for the other piece to kill the rule of law and then attempt a consult win here. I can't imagine that's super likely considering the amount of mana being held up by the rest of the table. Potentially we could be looking at something like a Cyclonic Rift. I don't know. This is a very wide open Limdul's Vault in the opportunities that you have. There's not like a whole lot of specific things that you like need right now.
While he's doing that, let's head over to his deck list, brought to you by Moxfield. And so this is really what his 99 is looking like. So, you know, and we don't know the order of it in, but I mean, is there anything in here in any combination that we really want to see on the 5?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is you're sort of the issue right now that you're having as an Agila is that there's a rule of law in play, which means that you can't go for your Oracle win, and you don't have an Agila in play, so you can't go for your Agila wins. So you have to be going for something to solve one of those 2 problems, and I'm not sure what it is. Potentially, it might be the Fire Covenant.
Fire Covenant might be interesting.
Yeah. I'm not super sure what your solution here is without your Najil in play. This is sort of why I was talking about, I think it might have been just correct to slend the Najila here in the first place and try to get Warriors so you're more sure of what your options are. Because it could be very realistic that this is a Fire Covenant or something to that effect, and then maybe you can't actually stick a Najila, or it's too slow and there's something else pressing that needs to happen here.
So he went down 3. Let's see here. So he finishes that. Interesting what he might go after. I wonder if he pays for this fish here. Do you think he would?
I think at this point, you sort of just want to get the Najeela in play, and if you don't have another land drop, then I think that you just let it go. That being said, he's paying for it. Okay, I like this if you're making a land drop and casting Najeela right here.
And you don't know if you hit the land drop right until you draw after.
So he Limb Duels vaulted.
Oh, that's correct.
So he knows what's on top. That being said, so he's paying for it.
Let's see what he's got.
I guess you can't. I guess you have the you have the Death Rider Shaman, so you can cast Najeela anyway. I'm just not sure if you're casting Najeela here. What are you doing with the Limb Duels vault? I'm trying to figure this out. Yeah, I think it has to be something like a Fire Covenant. I can't imagine much else is going to get you out of this situation.
He does get a land. Now, so I mean, he could have very well just Limb Duels vaulted into a land drop.
Yeah. That being said, this is a fetch land, so it'll ruin the rest of the pile.
Right.
If he cracks it here, so I'm not sure how real of a land it is right now. If he put some effort into
Arbor Elf from Fenix.
Arbor Elf. I'm really not a fan of this. I mean, the obvious thing is that the Jessica might come down and downtick to clear the Najeela, but the issue is like you're not winning through the Rule of Law anyway. And there's a very real chance that the Jessica isn't going to downtick and will instead just be zeroing on the big old flying boy with lifelink in the Ad Nauseam deck, which seems very realistic to me. So I don't know.
That seems like a good game plan.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, he might also be keeping around that Mystic Remora because of the Jessica recast here.
Yeah, that's not unrealistic to me. Just the interesting thing is that, again, he had the opportunity to recast Najeela as well as hold up the Remora. So I'm not sure. Like, potentially he just vaulted for an answer to the Sarah Ascendant, but I can't imagine that that's a winning line.
And he shocked in Godless Shrine. He is recasting Jessica.
So this will be 4 counters, I believe?
4 counters. That is a big Jessica.
So, not quite in Kenrith killing range yet, but getting there. Maybe with a few more turns of land drops and rocks, we'll get up to killing Kenrith with a downtick.
They just made a statement where it was they were talking about the rip to all the dorks on the board, and Callahan just replied, "Rip to your life totals."
Correct. I mean, yeah. We're seeing a 0, right?
Yeah, 0 on the Sarah Ascendant, and he is swinging it at... He's deciding where to swing that right now.
This is sort of what I'm scared of as Fenix.
And that's going right at Fenix.
Yeah. This is like... I just think that you have to get the Najeela out faster. Like, you have to just commit to that as your win condition, because if you're not casting the Najeela here, then you need the Rule of Law to be gone to actually win the game. And I'm not sure that Razakat's in a position to do that. I don't think Jessica Timna has a lot of tools to do that. You're potentially looking at maybe... No, there's not even a wear tear here. Yeah, there's like not much out of... or potentially not anything out of the farm deck that's going to get rid of that Rule of Law. So, like, then that means that you have to find the answer to the Rule of Law, and you have to find the Oracle and attempt that win. I'm not super happy about keeping the Najeela off the board for this long.
Interesting what's going on now. I mean, it does... this is a legit way to try and win the game for these Jessica farm lists, is if things... kind of go sideways and you don't get to get your win con off, you just slam some bodies and start turning them sideways with Jessica.
Yeah, I mean, 6/6 flyers definitely not terrible when they have triple strike.
And lifelink. I mean, he's up to 51 life
and
now.
Lifelink. Yep.
And that puts Fenix down to, after the 18, down to 7. Because he was at 25
Yeah.
before that.
And then, yeah, you can see Pongo pumping Kenrith. I mean, Kenrith could also just go for the kill on Fenix here, or at least force a block, which is, yeah, I mean, like, again, just, you're just dying here and you can't do much about it.
And he is kind of I mean, and the one thing to think about, Pongo passes here. The one thing to think about is that Kenrith can give himself trample, which is a big oof to your life total.
Yeah, definitely. So we're seeing an Entomb in end step?
That is correct, on Pongo's end step.
In Pongo's end step. Interesting. So we didn't see an attack.
He just played a land and passed the turn. So I'm not sure what he is setting up here.
Realistically, he could be setting up for a Dockside reanimation and just wants to keep the Kenrith around. And potentially doesn't see much of a reason to swing out with Kenrith rather than hold it back to block Timna if he thinks that the Saracen is going somewhere else.
So the Nagila player, so Fenix, with the Remora trigger on the stack, cracked his Windswept Teeth. So he didn't want what was on top from that Limb Duel's vault, I would assume.
That's honestly just even more incredible to me because I'm not sure what it was getting then. Potentially we still have a Cyclonic Rift that's live to keep him alive for a bit longer. I mean, the Sierra Senate is still going to be a continuous problem because 1 mana 6/6 flyers that exactly match your current life total. Not a great thing to be playing against when your deck is full of bound spells. Okay, so
Fenix is firing off a Vampiric Tutor here. So and this is in response to the Remora trigger.
So this could be going for the last piece of a combo win here. The issue is, like, I'm just, with Pongo with that much mana up, I'm just so worried about, like, just being stuffed here by, like, a single counterspell on your removal spell. Like, a Veil of Summer here just stops an Abrupt Decay in its tracks, and you're immediately dead to the Sarah Ascendant.
Oof.
But I'm not sure if there's another option.
That Sarah Ascendant really kind of changed the landscape of the game, I feel like.
It certainly did. I think it put Farm from solidly losing into solidly winning.
It's insane just how quickly the tide turns because of that. I mean, just one Jessica activation on that, and suddenly Callahan's right back in the game. I mean, it looked like he had nothing. He ran out of gas.
Yeah, definitely.
And this kind of highlights why Timna as that partner, too, is so good. Because you're able to just play that, and you can even zero on your Timna and gain some life and just kind of try and draw some cards. And that's a totally solid game plan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Timna in general, just great card. Some would say overpowered. I would tend to agree with them. But, I mean, I've played a lot of Timna in my day. It tends to draw a lot of cards. People don't like when it draws a lot of cards, but it draws a lot of cards, even when people try to get it to not do that.
So it looks like Snax got Jingataxius on that Entomb. So what do you think he's going for here?
I would assume that he's going for some form of reanimation effect. Yeah, and I can't... If you're Pongo and you have interaction here, there's no way that you can actually... Like, you're just in a place where I don't think you can counter the reanimation spell, unfortunately enough and weirdly enough, just because Fenix is tutored twice.
Right.
And there's like a real chance that he just has a win attempt that he can present.
Now, being at 4 life puts him at a rough spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm more and more surprised that there was no Kenrith Sling last turn. Especially, like, trying to get Fenix off of mana. Considering that like you're quite possibly the only person at the table that's going to be representing interaction. So if you don't kill Fenix, then there's like a reasonable chance that he'll just attempt the win and force you to burn your interaction immediately.
And here comes a Dark Confidant from Snax as spell for turn.
So it looks like the Entomb was just a proactive Entomb, trying to get it out of his hand while he had the mana and the time.
Right.
Not unreasonable. This is something that you see a fair amount out of Reanimator decks, where you have an Entomb stuck in your hand without a reanimation piece, but you want to be mana efficient and have mana up for your other cards for following turns until you can make a win attempt. So,
and now he did play a Cradle for the land for turn.
So I would normally say that he looks very set up for a long game, but we're already in the long game, and it looks like he might be dead in a couple of turns, depending on which way that Serra Ascendant goes.
That Serra Ascendant can just go one direction and just, kill some people.
Yeah, it just sort of tends to ruin your day pretty hard when it chooses the wrong direction.
You never want the Serra Ascendant with the Jessica swinging at you.
Yeah, please no. I'll vote no on that one. All right, so we're seeing
activating Deathrite Shaman.
We're seeing a mana ability or a gain life mode.
I don't think
like
he's
ability.
So he's not eating the Jenga Taxius.
Yeah,
he's
I don't
just
think
getting
you
a
can afford
land
to here if you need to do. Like, if you need to cast something. That being said, you do have an Exotic Orchard, and it might be reasonable to munch that Djinn if you had the mana. Okay, so we're seeing 3 mana. This is an opposition agent, potentially?
Abrupt Decay, paying for the Rhystic Study.
So this is what we sort of figured coming from the Vampiric Tutor. It's fairly obvious that he needs to go for a win this turn or just be dead. Oh, Pongo lets it go. Yep.
He's asking if anybody has a response, and yeah, I'm curious what's in his hand now.
I mean, it's potentially like pretty reasonable that Pongo also just may not have anything, and the mana being held up was in order to reanimate something like a Dockside,
right?
Or potentially Grand Abolisher, something to that effect.
They're activating Kenrith.
Yep.
Getting the Dockside.
Dockside, yep. So this is, I think, probably going to be making... So this makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 still, if I'm counting correctly.
Yeah, that looks to be correct.
6 treasures. Might be activate Kenrith for 4 to draw a card and hope to hit an answer.
Possibly. So he now has six treasure tokens. Still lets the Rule of Law go away. And this is going to let Fenix attempt to get back in this game on this turn.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost assuredly a win attempt. You don't really have another option here. You just got to go for it.
Well, he is going to his turn. Presumably, this Mystic Remora is going away.
I hope so. Otherwise, if this isn't going away, then this is going to be, like, possibly the most protected win of all time.
I mean, who knows? I mean, it might stick around and he just dies to Serra Ascendant.
Yeah, definitely an option. It could also stick around and he might not die to Serra Ascendant.
Oh, he pays for it.
All right.
Oh, nope, he's not paying for it. Okay.
It goes away. There we go. That's sort of more in line with what we were hoping to see. Maybe not hoping to see, but expecting to see. Yeah, so, I mean, fair amount of mana. This is enough to go for a protected Oracle Consult win. Let's just see if anybody has anything to say about it.
So, City of Brass for land for turn, which is not great right now. It's more of a City of Ass at the current moment.
City of Ass.
Sounds like an accurate description.
Not what you want to be seeing right now. So he's targeting Snax there, making 2 blue off the carpet. So we'll see what he... So he has 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So presumably about 12 mana at his disposal.
Yeah. Similar to that effect, yes. Pretty much enough to do whatever he wants.
Casting demonic
Okay.
consultation.
Consult first.
Let's see what he names on this. And it seems like the table's passing on it. I think he's trying to find a line.
So you're sort of...
He's naming Tainted Pact off the demonic consultation.
Okay. Interesting.
He's paying for the one with the soul ring floating a colorless. So top 6 is Silence, Eladamri's Call, Force, Tainted Pact.
Oh my god.
You'll love to see it, and a Derevi.
Insane. Like, there's a library.
Oh man. So unless he has the Thor in hand, he's dead, right?
Yep.
There it is. Thassa's
There's the
Oracle.
Oracle.
Does he just win?
Possibly.
Let's see. Callahan has priority.
Can't imagine he has much to say about that.
Yeah, I
don't
can't
think he has
imagine.
enough cards in hand to Monkey Blast, so...
Yeah, he just has the Beseiju up. And Pongo makes him draw a card with his treasure and the Kenrith in response.
Ooh.
So Fenix
The
dies to
classic.
that.
Oh. We're seeing... Oh, yep, that's just a scoop. Yeah.
Well,
Gotta
he
remember that.
dies to
Yep.
the draw.
Yep, certainly does. I was just wondering if he was tapping lands to try to get Pongo with a Stifle or something, but no, yeah, that's about it. Yeah, you really had to hit the Tainted back there to not just immediately die to the Kenrith, unfortunately, which is, sort of a hidden strength of Kenrith is just being able to kill greedy Thorkel players. Potentially another line, if he was playing a more experimental version of Nagila, would be to have named something like a Underworld Breach with that, so that you could get Underworld Breach, cast Underworld Breach, and then recast the consult a number of times.
So Callahan loses another mana crypt trigger.
I mean, let's be honest. At this point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he
You have a
plays
Sarah Ascendant, you're good to go.
he plays a Lion's Eye Diamond.
Not great here. Still has some amount of utility if you want to cast an uncounterable ad nause that crack in response to get some extra mana for post nause, but not a huge amount of utility. That being said, I mean, you can sort of do some abusiveness with Jessica a bit, but you're still not at the point where you can kill Kenrith, and at this point, you're unlikely to ever get there, considering Kenrith can continue pumping himself.
Yeah, because and there's a dockside from Callahan.
Even more mana that you never need.
The problem is that there is a two treasure, and it sounds like Pongo's going to respond. And I think he's just going to crack them both and put a counter on Kenrith, I think is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's about where you're at with this game right now. You obviously can't outrace the Sarah Ascendant, but if the Sarah Ascendant ever goes away, you sort of are looking to have a large boy Kenrith in order to take advantage of a pretty large board state, quite frankly. Now, nothing aside from Kenrith is large, but a large Kenrith makes a large board state.
He's not putting a counter on Kenrith. He's casting Tainted Pact.
Ooh. So,
he's not
quite
doing
honestly,
anything.
this could-
Excuse me. He's just floating 2 black.
and showing a Tainted Pact. Oh, no, he's casting it.
Okay. Never mind. This has been an interesting game.
Yeah, certainly has. Yeah, I don't know what you're looking for here. I don't think we've had. Really, are we really seeing a tutor chain here?
Nope. He keeps going.
Yeah, we're moving past it.
Mana
Here's the
drain.
Mana drain. Yeah, I can't really call what this is going for, considering we haven't had perfect information of Pongo's hand for a while at this point.
It's stopping on the Eldritch Evolution.
Interesting. So this could definitely be going for something like an Archon of Emeria, or really anything. I think the valuable part of this is that you can sack the Dockside and potentially get a reanimate on it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's a fair amount of stuff that you'd be getting here. Potentially this could be getting an Emiel the Blessed, which does combo with the Dockside if you can get it back into play.
And I don't remember. Does his list have Phantasmal Image in it?
It does.
So he could possibly align. And it's been a while since we recorded this, so I genuinely don't remember. He might just Eldritch Evolution the Finhorn Elves, and then get a Phantasmal Image, and then just loop Docksides.
The issue is that the Dockside isn't going to be making that much still. You're still stuck at like 3 because Callahan can crack everything and crack the LED as well. So you're not really profiting enough without Fenix alive to actually do Dockside combos. So you basically need to...
Oh, he zeros Jessica, or he doesn't zero Jessica. He -1s Jessica, hitting the Bob Llanowar Elves and 1 to Snax's face, it seems.
Oh my lord.
And the Sarah Ascendant is getting Assassin's Trophied.
Yeah, this seems like a reasonable line of play to me. Sarah Ascendant's sort of just got to go at this point.
I mean, if it doesn't go, it's just going to win the game.
Say. Yeah. I'm going to search.
Oh, he killed the Finhorn Elves. So he took out the Finhorn Elves, the Llanowar Elves, and the Bob, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Seems reasonable to me. I might have looked into killing off the Dockside instead. Instead of the Llanowar Elves, just because it doesn't make a huge amount of mana on the reanimate, and I think I'm mostly okay with that. But this is also a fine line. You're taking both players off of mana.
And for somebody who was stuck on like 4 mana for a while, it looks like Callahan's kind of done all right getting back some mana there.
Yeah. Definitely is. He was at 4 mana for a while, and I think after the Soul Ring he was mostly set, but definitely at a point now where pretty much any gas card off the top will be a win, which I'm assuming this is what the Tymna is going to be digging for, so...
Yeah. If he gets like a Savine's Reclamation, that puts him in a fairly decent spot, I feel like.
Yeah, especially with the LED in play and the Breach in the bin. It's just a lot that you can get done with that right now. Especially if you find something like a Sack Elder for the Dockside, which also could be an option that may have been missed here, is targeting your own Dockside with the Jessica.
Right.
Or is it opponents?
Oh, he's playing Scroll Rack.
No, it's any targets.
Yeah, you can hit any... Jessica's insanely good.
Jessica is, in fact, a very good card. Not just an infinite mana outlet, unlike some infinite mana outlets.
So Pongo goes to his turn, and he's going to draw for turn. And now he has that Eldritch Evolution in his hand, but it seems now. I mean, with the Scroll Rack coming out, I mean it's a little bit better, right? It gets you what, 4?
Yeah. Gets you 4. That's technically enough to go off with an MEL. The issue is that you can't get back the Dockside after Eldritch Evolutioning it right now because you just don't have enough mana.
Right.
So you might have to wait a turn cycle or try to sack the Dockside some other way to bring it back with Kenrith. This is a weird one. It might even just not be going for a win attempt at all here, but I think you might want to just try to go for it. It could also be possible that he goes for the Eldritch Evolution here to get the MEL and then just passes.
He's taking his time kind of thinking about that. I mean, he does have the Eldritch Evolution, so it is kind of a weird... He's casting the Eldritch Evolution, and he's sacking the Dock.
I think you're always casting the Eldritch Evolution here. I'm just not sure what you're getting with it. And I think that's also what Pongo was thinking about. This could also be getting something like an Archon of Emeria. You already ran over the Timna, so you're not getting much out of that. But, there are definitely options here.
So he is searching his library at the moment. So who is your money on right now if Pongo doesn't win this turn?
Not actually sure. I don't think the Rezkath is almost ever winning this game, unfortunately, just from being so behind in mana for the entire game. And even if you do get a Jin Cataxius...
Oh, dear. He got a Phantasmal image.
There's a Phantasmal image. It's going to copy Callahan's, I'm assuming. Callahan's Dockside.
And it seems that he's not cracking the LED to the Phantasmal image or the Dockside. So he's going to get 5 treasures here. And is that enough to just go off?
No, you're actually... you're like 3 off because you need... In order to do this loop with only Kenrith and no Sack Elliot, you need the Dockside to be making 8 treasures, which is a lot. Because you need to target the Phantasmal image with Kenrith's ability to put a 1/1 counter on it to get it to sack itself and then reanimate it. So that costs 7, and then you need to profit 1 in order to actually start winning. So it needs to make 8. So he's not quite there yet. He's going to need an outside enabler, so a Sack Elliot, which is not playing, or the MEL.
Well, he did pass the turn, so this is over onto Snax, whose username is Meaty Clangers. So that is Snax,
yes.
Though. The story goes that he made his Wizards account years ago, and that's what he made it.
Beautiful.
And he's just kind of stuck with it now. Birds of Paradise from Meaty Clangers.
Oh, we're getting back there. We're casting more dorks. They're probably going to be killed again, but we're casting more dorks.
That Jessica really makes dorks feel a lot worse.
Certainly does. Yeah, I'm trying to think about what Pongo's going to be looking for here. Potentially Training Grounds might get there because you get it down to activate 3/1. Yeah, so Training Grounds will also get there if there's no LED crack. So Training Grounds would actually force Callahan to crack the LED and discard his hand, which is interesting. Doesn't actually get there. I think Callahan's got a good shot, honestly. If he can get attacks through, which it looks like he probably can.
And he doesn't take damage from the Mana Crypt this time.
For once, there you go.
I think that's the second time maybe this game so far. I feel like the majority of this game since he landed that, it has just been a Crypt trigger after Crypt trigger. Lands an Urborg.
Yeah, just take a bolt to the face every turn. What could go wrong? You know what they say? Lightning never strikes the same place twice, except when it's Callahan's face.
And I feel like he's done a decent job at recovering after that running out of gas there.
I'd say so. Still being above starting life total after taking that many failed crypt rolls.
He is playing a Wishclaw Talisman.
That probably gets there. Not gonna lie.
So you would want to see
Snax
maybe a Savine's Reclamation here?
Potentially. I think Adnaz is probably also fairly likely to get there at this point. Probably seeing LED crack, activate Wishclaw Talisman, find either Savine's or Adnaz. I think Adnaz is probably safer. Because there might be noxious rivals in play from the other 2 players. Or you might believe that there are noxious rivals in play from the other 2 players. Yeah, the issue that I have here is Snax has 3 mana, or 4 mana even, and active Rhystic Study, so it might just be hard to storm through that.
Right.
Without removing it, and I'm not sure if past Callahan has removal in his deck for that Rhystic Study, as is sort of the downfall of playing farm decks.
Yeah. I mean, especially these farm decks that are sans green, they just kind of have to play through these Rhystic Studies and Mystic Remoras.
Yeah. So I guess your options here, you need to find your Grand Abolisher or your Ranger Captain.
He gives the Wish
Which is a fair
Claw
number
to
of hits.
Pongo here.
Interesting. Probably wouldn't be my choice. I think Pongo is very likely to just immediately win the game with an MEL if you do that.
True.
But, I mean, if you're going for the win this turn, then it might just be required.
So he's paying the 2 life for the Beseiju to cast an uncounterable Ad Nauseam. Man, Beseiju with these Ad Nauseams is just so good.
Yeah. You should probably also be holding priority and cracking an LED here. Get some extra mana. Make sure that you can actually do stuff.
Enlightened Tutored in response. What do you think he's getting off that Enlightened Tutor? Maybe an Animate Dead or something?
I would assume a Necromancy to guess Necromancy in response. Get something like Dockside. I don't know. I don't know if there's much in people's graveyards that can actually interact here. If the Rule of Law was on a creature instead of being actual factual Rule of Law, that could do it here, but I don't know. I am fairly confident this is probably going for a Necromancy, but I don't know what the play with it is here. Because the Jin-Gitaxias isn't going to do a whole lot.
It seems that he's getting Animate Dead.
Animate Dead, alright.
Interesting. Ooh, Pongo casts Silence in response to Ad Nauseam, and that just kind of does it, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, this is sort of what you're afraid of, and pretty much seals it up. Potentially Adnaz can still find removal, which can temporarily deal with your Kenrith stuff. That being said, Pongo does have a lot of mana to recast Kenrith or get back
Ranger Capto
Phantasmal
is
Image.
right there on the top.
Yeah, that's a feels bad.
So Ranger Captain, Mox Diamond, all of these look like they don't feel great. Bloodstained Mire.
Yeah, I think we're looking for a Swords here, presumably.
And he can't cast any more spells the rest of the turn, correct?
Yeah, you're basically just looking for interaction for Pongo's turn at this point. Unfortunate that the LED wasn't cracked. That might allow him to have activated the scroll rack and left mana up for Pongo's turn.
Interesting, yeah, that would make sense.
So he could have digged further for, again, Swords to Plowshares, because Swords might be the only thing that can stop Pongo from winning, Pongo from winning on his turn.
Man, he's hitting like every 3-drop in the deck.
Yeah, it's a lot. Thankfully, he has some life to spare, but this is a bit of a rough Naz.
He's hitting some good stuff. There's a Pyroblast.
Yeah. Pyroblast isn't going to do much here, just because the Phantasmal Image dying doesn't actually do much. So there's a Swords. Did find it.
He stops at 13 with the Chrome Mox. So I think that's just the turn, and you would think that unless he keeps that, maybe you want to Swords the Kenrith on upkeep?
Yeah, I think what Pongo should be doing here is, since everything's silenced, okay, Callahan and Dan taking by 2.
So he uses Jessica to -2, hitting the Dockside, Phantasmal Image, and the Bird.
Okay, interesting. So I think we're gonna see. I'd be surprised if we didn't see Pongo reanimate his own dockside in response to swords, or in the send step with a silence still in play.
Right.
Just so that he can actually get the body back into play, and then you can use that Wishclaw Talisman. I guess it's correct to wait until the swords gets cast, or you can find interaction for it.
This looks like Callahan is just going to discard down to hand size at this point. Kind of where you're at, I would assume.
Yep. That is the sad life of resolving a full ad nauseum after silence and actually doing the entire thing.
So he is deciding what to do there. While he's doing that, just a quick reminder again to make sure that you head on over to our Patreon. You can help support the show, keep the podcast going, keep these gameplay episodes going. And you'll also get access to the Discord server where Reed and I are both in, as well as Pongo, Snax, Fenix, Cobble. The whole gang is in there. So be sure to go check that out. And we were talking earlier in the day about the gameplay episode that we posted last week. Well, I suppose we're recording this the day of. So we were talking a little bit about that in the server today. So yeah, all sorts of fun stuff like that. And he's kind of deciding what to keep here. So based on what you saw there, what are you assuming he hits?
I'm assuming he's keeping probably some. Actually, I don't even know if you're keeping some fast mana here. I think you can probably stock your hand with the tutors that you hit, the swords, a land drop, and I think that just fills it. Maybe keeping the ranger captain as well as your interaction, quote unquote, or protection. And then just hoping to go for tutor, potentially tutor Savines, crack LED, cast Savines, get back stuff, and then you pretty much have an entire stock graveyard plus a protection spell.
So here in cleanup, he's using the 5 treasures to make the dockside.
So this indicates to me that Pongo has protection for the dockside. Otherwise, you could be a bit worried about seeing a swords hit it and upkeep from Callahan, which would pretty much put an end to your day. And I'm not sure how much winning you can do after that, considering the rest of your combos are pretty much all 2 pieces and are a fair amount of mana.
It's interesting. The Razakets player has not landed a Thrasios or a Tymna this game. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, it's just sort of been playing dorks and getting them killed the entire time, which definitely I am no stranger to, and I'm sort of feeling for him here.
This feels like it is a game that has been the pace of the game has kind of been dictated by this Jessica. Really, well,
yeah,
it really once that Sarah Ascendant came down.
Yeah. It's really the fact that you have to deal with the Sarah Ascendant, and then also while you're attempting to do that, your dorks are all getting pinged down continuously.
So he's still discarding to hand size. I mean, he had a big group of cards, but unfortunately a lot of them were like almost every 3 drop in the deck, it looked like. And that's kind of, from my understanding, one of the downsides of this Mardu list versus the Roger list we saw last week, which is a farm build as well. That one is a lot more lower to the ground as far as its mana cost. And some of that is because of the colors it's in the commander, right?
Yeah, and well, also, so that you have obviously a lot more low color staples. You just have more tutors, or more relevant tutors in the colors, and then you have stuff like the cantrips and all that kind of stuff, as well as the extra 0 mana rocks that Roger brings. A bunch of good stuff. And then also your win cons tend to be lower costed as well. So Oracle Consult is very low CMC wise, whereas your CMCs for win cons tend to run up a bit higher in Mardu.
So he's talking about what he's kept that they know of. And he kept a lot of good stuff there. So goes over to Pongo's turn.
Pongo actually gets a draw.
Oh, the swords doesn't do anything? Because the Grand Abolisher is back.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
I think Pongo just wins here.
Yeah, something like that. Can't imagine he doesn't. Although it's going to be a bit tricky to get the mana to work.
So he used the Wishclaw Talisman there.
Yeah, and so he's going to be passing the Wishclaw Talisman back in order to up his dockside count as well.
Based on the chat that I'm hearing is sounds like the top deck Pongo got was really good.
Oh boy. If that means that he top deck an MEL, then this could just be going for a mana crypt and the game probably ends on the spot.
It might be. Let's see. Man, that Grand Abolisher that silence really did it.
Yeah. Silence is a great answer to ad nauseum.
It's one of those really big oofs.
Not as great. Yeah, not as good as a hard counter, but it feels a lot worse. Because I have all these cards, but I can't do anything with them.
Especially when you're in this farm deck where you're trying to cast that ad naus, and then you want to get them off, you want to go fast.
And you successfully resolved your ad naus. You did the thing.
And then there's a silence.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the downside to this Mardu build, right?
Yeah, you sort of just your one-shot gun, glass cannon, just sort of making the attempt, and that's all you got. Honestly, these are the sort of games that make you want to play Thought Vessel. Or Spellbook, for that matter.
Man, Thought Vessel. I haven't thought about that card since like the old days of Joyra Storm.
Oh, sure.
Back when Paradox Engine was still legal.
Yeah. Do some expedition map for Reliquary Tower. Mm-hmm. You get to keep that out in our hand.
There we go. Expedition map for Reliquary Tower. That's like Galaxy Brain tech, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's bringing back the Phantasmal Image.
So it looks like there was a Gaia's Cradle, which is a pretty nuts draw because it has actually let him
Jeez.
bring back the Phantasmal Image. I think if I'm Callahan here, I actually might have Scroll Racked. Oh, but you can't activate Scroll Rack. That is tragic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's the Emil.
Yep.
So without the Gaia's Cradle, he doesn't get there that turn, do you think?
No, that he has to...
So he said he top decked Emil, and he used the Wish Claw to get the Gaia's Cradle. So giving the Wish Claw to Pongo did matter.
Yeah, it definitely did. That's definitely what I was worried about when Callahan handed that over. That being said, I'm not sure how likely you are to get there anyway after discarding down and giving Pongo the turn cycle, but yeah, definitely a game.
Yeah.
And what a game it was.
So, based on, what you saw, how do you really feel about how things went down in that game, and what do you think you would have done differently, and how the kind of chips fell?
So I definitely feel like that was actually fairly well balanced, aside from obviously Snax not being able to, get anything. Bit unfortunate. That's definitely the risk that you run when you keep a hand with not a whole lot of access to the colors that you need. Basics in a hand like that are definitely a death sentence, and I'm not sure that I would have even kept that 6. I probably would have gone to 5 with mana as awkward as that was.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, yeah, I mean, we also saw some pretty nuts opening hands as well. And apparently, I guess they all just sort of balanced each other out. Because that game went for a pretty long time.
Yeah, I mean, we're here at an hour and a half, and you would think with a farm deck, a Najeela deck, and a Razakats deck, the game would kind of move along fairly quick, regardless of the Snax deck. But here we are.
Yep. Well, we didn't really see that much stacks come down, right? Like we saw one rule of law, and then not much got played around that, and then it sort of got removed as part of a win attempt. So most of that game was actually played fairly unrestricted, which is sort of interesting.
So moving forward, you know, how do you feel about some of these newer decks that have entered the meta, like, you know, these Kenra Stacks list, kind of the new Jessica farm builds? How are your feelings on these right here?
I definitely think they're interesting. To me, they're sort of a continuation of traditions of older versions of decks. Obviously, the Jessica farm list is a continuation of actual factual farm,
Right?
Mad farm to be more specific, and just more in general a tradition of turbo ad nos decks, especially ones that we've seen picking up recently. So it's nice to see something that can actually play real win cons and is actually sort of as a niche as, to a degree, an anti-dork deck, which is interesting. Camera Stacks is also sort of, it's a bit bizarro world, but it sort of also comes from a long line of Stacks dork decks. A lot of stuff that plays through rule of laws pretty well. We also saw stuff in that vein, obviously with different win cons and not going quite as deep on the rule of law synergies, but stuff like Hulk Weaver has done stuff like that before. Potentially, you can compare it to Blood Pod, although I think that's a fairly surface level comparison, and there are some deeper differences there. But yeah, it's interesting. I do think that creature combo has been underrated for a fairly long time at this point. Yes, there have been people playing with like Bruce Tarl Thrasios stuff that have been doing dockside abuse, but I think that it's something that can definitely be considered, especially in a Kenrith deck with natural synergies with reanimating and such, as part of an overall creature win con package with like a bunch of players, which we saw sort of on display there.
Interesting. Well, so that is kind of it for us today. We saw a really interesting game. Lots of kind of crazy, wacky stuff going on. Thank you for joining us and coming along for this hour and a half journey today. I know our games last week were a little bit shorter, so this week is a little bit of a change of pace. But again, thank you for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to help support the show, go check out the Patreon, where you can go down there, support the show, and get access to our Discord server. So with that, thank you for tuning in. This is the Mind Sculptors gameplay series, and we'll see you next week.
City of Ass.